Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Of course, we're just under 2 hours before President Cyril Ramaphosa delivers the opening speech for the 7th administration. And of course, interesting how things are going to turn out there. This is a new era of South African politics. The government of national unity taking center stage. Let me welcome my next guest into the studio. He's no stranger to Hilaal TV. That's none other than Moulana Sulaimaan Ravat. Of course, I'll be chatting to Moulana Ravat, and we'll be crossing over to my colleague Luqman Shadrack, who's on the ground there. Moulana, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Of course, we'll be speaking at our Hilaal studios in Ravonia. So different, obviously different place where we are.
Different weather.
Different weather. Yeah, well, we were expecting rain, Moulana, but alhamdulillah, it's turned out well.
Yeah, no, it was raining quite a bit early this morning.
Yes, yeah.
It was quite wet, but I think now it's settled down, alhamdulillah. Cape Town enjoys some nice rain during the winter. Us Joburgers are not quite used to that.
Yeah, I tell you what, Moulana, I have a confession. I'd rather take the Johannesburg one than the Cape Town one. Moulana, we were there during the elections. We saw history unfold. This government of national unity, boy, don't they have their work cut out for them?
They absolutely do. And I think the thing is this, that we should move away from this romantic notion that one speech is going to inspire confidence in the nation. It's not. We've reached a point where people are frustrated, people are angry, people are despondent, people are desperate, and justifiably and understandably so. A speech is a good starting point, but this administration needs to deliver. That's what needs to happen now. That's the only thing that's going to inspire confidence in that big percentage of people who were eligible to register to vote, who didn't register, and those who were registered but didn't turn out to vote, those who are fed up with the state of the country and the performance of the politicians. So speeches are not going to cut it anymore. In the early days of Ramaphosa, because he spoke better than Zuma, people were like, oh, okay, what a wonderful speech, Tuma Mina, and all of those kind of stuff. It's gone. It's history. He's got now a government of national unity. It has its positives, it has its negatives. The positives is that those who like the GNU say that, okay, for the first time you don't have all ministers from the same party. So you'll have ministers who will be somewhat independent, will be willing to call things out. It'll create some sort of a balance. On the other hand, there are those who are worried that the official opposition may not be as strong as it was previously, with the DA now sitting in government, because you've got a brand new party, the MK party, which is a personality-based party, leading the official opposition. Whatever the case may be, they need to deliver between now and the next 2.5 years, when it's the local government elections. Otherwise, you're going to see further chaos. Maybe not chaos, but you're going to see a further revolt from the voters at the ballot box.
Here's the thing, Moulana. The opposition that is there, the MK party, you mentioned about its personality-based politics. It's a clear factor that it's Jacob Zuma or nothing at all. I mean, is it really strong?
It's as strong as long as Jacob Zuma is there, right? So the EFF started off as a personality-based party, and it still is. But they've got a 10-year period wherein they were able to establish structures and create some stability around the party. You can see the chaos within the MK.
Sure.
The guy steps down one day as SG, doesn't
you
don't even know who's your SG,
exactly,
right? John Klope comes in right at the last minute and becomes the leader of the official opposition in parliament. But Zuma is a master technician. You've got to give him that. As much as there's chaos within the party, and as much as I personally feel they miscalculated big time in terms of the negotiations, and they got totally marginalized in KZN, where they ought to have been leading as a result of those miscalculations. They made it very easy for the ANC. But the question now would be, what does Zuma want? Does he just want to get back at Ramaphosa and do that by creating chaos? Kind of like what we saw with the EFF in their first term in parliament, just wanting to get back at the ANC because they expelled Malema and Shivambo. Or is he willing to play a long game? Is he willing to actually hold them to account?
80 plus, Moulana.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Here's my thing, is that he's no vampire. He's not going to live beyond 100, 150. So he's now got a huge problem because there is really no succession plan. Let's call it for what it is, Moulana. There is no real succession plan within the MK. No one's looking at Duduzile really to lead this party.
Neither is there in the EFF,
Yes,
right?
yeah, sure.
And neither is there in the UDM and many parties. But the reason why we're focusing on the MK is because they were the ones with the biggest explosion in this election, coming onto the scene from 0 to 15%. And they are now, as per the new rules of parliament, the official opposition. So they come under the microscope. John Hlophe is a smart man. Impeachment or what he may be implicated in is a different matter. But if you watched him in the press briefing today, he's no dud. Nonetheless, it's a party which is very unstable. And you're right in that. But there's another thing that we need to watch for us. There's an entire generation of ANC senior leaders on their way out.
Yes.
When we were in City Hall earlier this morning, because of the rain, right? They moved the media there. There's a nice picture there in the museum of a young Cyril Ramaphosa with a young Rolf Meyer during the negotiations of CODESA. They're no longer young. They're in their 70s. So who's going to be the next generation of ANC leaders? That's also something to watch. How solid is the succession plan? What's the reputation of the next generation of leaders in the ANC? What's their credibility? What's their values like? There was a time when perhaps we had more Muslims in cabinet than we have now in parliament.
Yes.
So what's the succession plan from us as a Muslim community in terms of Muslim political leaders? So I think succession is a key point across the political spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about next generation of leaders, Moulana. One of them, of course, Fasia Hassan. She's now an MP. You speak of Muslim, you speak of female. She's a representation of maybe what the youth ought to be like, isn't she, within the African National Congress? So the move to bring her, of course, within the National Assembly, does it signify some sort of a change of guard from the ANC's perspective of youth leaders?
I don't know. I don't think it's adequate enough, across the religious divide and across the ideological divide for a big party like the ANC in terms of the percentage of youth that they have and also how you define youth, right? So we've had young Muslim MPs in the past. You've had Yusuf Qasim, although he was in the DA and not in the ANC. But the ANC has long been criticized for being top heavy in terms of age, right? You had to be in your mid to late 60s before you could even be considered a candidate to be president. And that was understandable because of what happened in the transition from being a liberation movement to being a ruling party. And those people got old in exile. And when they came back, they were not just going to move one side and say, let the youngsters come and lead us. So the younger people had to wait a generation. Ramaphosa is an example of that. Remember how angry he got back in 94 that he did not become deputy president and the automatic successor to Madiba, that he even boycotted Madiba's inauguration at the union buildings. He had to wait almost 20 years before he got into power. But if you look at the way it's playing out in the world, besides the US, where you've got Nanabaji and Dadabaji contesting each other, presidents and prime ministers now are in their late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s. So it would be interesting to see in which the ANC won't go into that direction immediately. Paul Mashatile, Fikile Mbalula are still on the upper end in terms of the age scale. But yeah, interesting trend to watch.
Moulana, as always a pleasure having you on. Jazakallah so much. We hope to, inshallah, if there is time permits, to have you maybe post President Cyril Ramaphosa's speech. Always a pleasure having you on. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
That's Moulana Sulaimaan Ravat, of course, just breaking down, how the elections has been, how this government of national unity is going to be.